Hello. We are in Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. Now, last time we were in chapter 5, we were talking about all those, the forefathers of humanity who had such long lives, and eventually they all ended up dying except for Enoch. So it's a bit of a sad chapter, although we as Christians and believers in God who have a relationship with Him, we discussed that we shouldn't be too worried about Him, because although death is horrible, at the same time we can be rest assured that an eternal bliss is waiting for us when we leave this world. So verse 1 in chapter 6 says, "When men began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. Now, theologians are not sure what 120 years mean exactly. Does it mean that there were 120 years remaining until the flood? Because from chapter 9 we are going to talk about Noah. Or does it actually mean that the days of man is going to be, the man can live for up to 120 years? Now, Moses is going to talk about the years of men, and I don't remember exactly, but I think he's talking about 70 or 80 years. But in any case, I remember talking to he was a doctor, but he was also doing like these homeopathic things, selling them and talking to people about like natural medicine, if you will. And he said that he reckons if somebody eats healthily, exercises, lives properly, they could live, the body has the ability to live for up to 120 years. And I remember learning about the blue zones. There are 5 blue zones on the planet where there are people who live over 100 years and of age, and you have 100-year-olds who are still exercising and running, and what they found was that they eat mostly vegetables, mostly plant-based stuff, and very little meat, and they don't exactly get too rallied up about things which contribute to their long lives. So it looks like man does have the ability to live well over 120 years. Verse 4, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Now, it is thought among many that the Bible talks about the descendants of Seth. But it has been suggested, if the Bible is talking about humans, why does he call the daughters, the women, why does the Bible call the women as the daughters of men, and then the males calls the sons of God? Which doesn't make much sense, although also they were compared to ancient Middle Eastern ways, that the ways ancient Middle Easterns were thinking about these things, because one method that's used to interpret the Bible is how ancient Middle Eastern used to think about a lot of things, and that gives an insight as to how the ancient Middle Eastern people were thinking. So some reckon that these relationships are similar to ancient Middle Eastern relationships, whereby the sons of God means actually the sons of kings, but then they were talking about polygamies and things like that. But the author I read says that, but this verse doesn't really suggest polygamy at all. And the other thing is, if you look at sons of God, it looks like the Bible is talking about supernatural beings, because that's what it seems like. The book of Job, for example, the counsel of God, or the books of Psalms. But in the Old Testament as well, if you look at 2 Peter 2 verses 4 and 5, it says that for if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until judgment, if he did not spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah, a herald of righteousness, with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the world of the ungodly. So it looks like even Peter thinks about this section of the Bible as the Bible's talking, as if the Bible was talking about angels. The book of Jude, chapter 1 verse 5 says, "Now I want to remind you, although you once fully know it, that Jesus, who saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed those who did not believe." And I didn't copy the other verse. "And the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day." So again, it looks like he is talking about this event. And he is talking about angels who wouldn't stay where they were supposed to stay. So it looks like the New Testament authors, or at least 2 of them, do think that these sons of God are actually angels, supernatural beings. Verse 5, "The Lord saw that the wickedness of men was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, men and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them." But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So what does it mean that God was grieving? Does it mean that this whole thing is, and God became sort of started making arbitrarily decisions? But if you think about it, God is a righteous judge, which means he has to judge those who are evil. People, the punishment has to be paid for sin. And of course you could ask the question, that, yeah, but was everyone really evil? What about children? And there is if you think about it, many times I've had this thought process, or this exercise really, in thinking that what would happen if someone came across Hitler as a child, or Mao, or any of these horrible leaders, and had the ability to kill the child? Would someone do it? If you could stop millions and millions from suffering by killing one child, would someone do it? That's an interesting conundrum. Hopefully I wouldn't be the one to make this decision. And luckily we don't have the ability to foreknow these things. And although you might change history, but it's an interesting thing. What would you do if you could stop a horrible historical event, but you would have to make this horrible sacrifice? And there are philosophical exercises like that. I watched a philosophical lecture at Harvard University, and they were asking similar questions. Would you kill one person if you could save another 5, for example? So, yeah, what would someone do? And there's another thing called vicarious liability, which means that it's something that is practiced in law, but the other thing is it is used in the New Testament as well. The idea is present, because vicarious liability means like your child breaks in someone else's window and you're responsible for it. You're the one who has to pay for it. Or in many cases, the employer is reliable for the employee's action, and it's actually the employer who gets into trouble. The the employer could get fired for something the employee did, for example. As for causing humanity to be wiped out, we're going to talk about it next time, but there was an interesting thing that I heard somewhere. Somebody said that if I had the power of God, you could see that there would be you could see the difference around the world instantly. But if I had God's wisdom, you wouldn't see any change. So again, it is extremely difficult to come to terms with what it's like, or why God would wipe out the humans and why he would feel sorry for them. Yeah, it's not easy. Amen.